Alright, so here's the quick startup procedures for the Project Longbow from the or Project Longbow for the Age-64 Delta. This one does have a radar, though they are pretty much identical if you don't have one with the radar system on. So to start off with the helicopter and just starting the process, first turn on your battery. This will turn on all of the systems, weapon systems and all of that. Moving on, turn off the rotor brake right here. This will disengage the rotor brakes and allow it to move freely. Next thing is APU, click that on. Indication, the best way to indicate if the APU is on is when the thing that sounds like an engine starts slowing up. You won't be able to see the APU progress on the MFDs yet. Next is engine startup. So you have engine 1 and engine 2. Personally, I found there is no difference in which engine you start up with, so just go ahead and flick on both buttons. So these two, you just flick these on. Make sure you observe the NG levels percentage over here. Once it starts hitting 28% or so, go ahead and set it to idle. The engines will start, or the motors will start turning, and you should be good to go. You really don't need to observe the NG levels, but in real life, this is what you do. Go ahead and turn off the APU. And set the throttle all the way to flying mode. That's how you start the Delta. And next section. Alright, so in this section, this is the MFD section. I'm just going to be showing you how to navigate the MFD panels. Please do note that the pilot side and the gunner side MFDs are pretty much identical. They operate the same way. So if you just operate the gunner side, or if you operate only the pilot side MFDs, it's pretty much the same way you operate on the gunner side. So, starting off, when you're starting up the helicopter, for the pilot side at least, I'm not too sure about the gunner side, you start off with these two pages. The left page is your fuel page, it just indicates your fuel. The right side is your engine page, anything related to your engine. The main thing you should be focusing are these two bars right here and that number right there. Now, to go to your main page, you just press this M button right here, which is your main page right here. I'm gonna go do it for these two pages for this case. So we're gonna go ahead and start off with the bottom section, aircraft. Engine, we already went over, and fuel, we already went over. FLT is just your speed and your altimeter, your angle of attack, so on and so forth. Nothing too special about that. It's just every aircraft just comes standard with that. PERF does not work, and UTIL does not work at all. So moving on, we're going to mission systems. These are where you access the majority of your weapon systems, your fire control systems, so on and so forth. First off, your FCR. I think you can only access this page on the right hand side. So, the FCR, this is your radar page. To turn it on, by default, it should be your Control R key, and it will turn on. It will be only sweeping in that cone of arc for air to ground mode. Air to air mode, if you were to access that, you could push, or you were to press Shift H. Shift H will bring up the air to air mode, and then Control H is back to the air to ground mode. In a different section, I will be showing off what different symbology means, and I will show that most likely in the weapon sections. Moving on, your weapon section. I'm going to go ahead and bring it up up on the left page, and then I'm going to bring up TSD on the right page. Weapon section. This is where you operate majority of your weapons. If you were to press 1, this brings up your guns, and you can operate any of the buttons right here. For some reason, I can't turn on all for some reason, so there's that. But you can get your round counts up to 100 rounds if you were to save ammo in some cases. It just depends on the scenario. Press 2. This is your Hydras. Currently, I have the M229 17-pound HEDPs on here, but I'm pretty sure if you get the different variants that have sub-munitions or flechette ammo, you get different options on the left-hand, or no, the right-hand side to set air burst mode and so on and so forth. I could be wrong. If you press 3, this is your Hellfire menu. I have both the AGM-114Ks and the AGM-114Ns. Your Ks are your standard laser-guided tandem warhead ATGMs. These comes in different factors of guidance systems, which is your low attack, direct attack, and then your high or top-down attack. I won't go too specifically on what each one does, but to put it simply, high attack if you are destroying enemy tanks that doesn't have ERA on top. If you just want the fastest way to kill an enemy or a tank or whatever it is, use direct attack. Low attack, I've rarely seen use cases for it, but but depending on the scenario, if you're within a certain distance range, you may want to turn that on. Moving on, since the 114Ns are radar guided, it is recommended that you bring up the FCR page, which I will demonstrate really quickly, which is this page here. This will pretty much lock on and engage, or if you press R, by default, you will lock onto stuff, and that's pretty much self-explanatory. And then, that should be pretty much it for this page, the weapon page. Lastly, the ASE page. This is your RWR and your jammer page. I recommend that you keep this page open for when you need it, because you will have the case that in certain AOs that you might need a jammer or two to get out of the situations. So here you will clearly see your countermeasures, how much you have. Now here are your main things for your jammers, which are you can set it to standby, which will deploy automatically when a missile is detected, and OPER, which is operate. It will operate for, I believe, 90 seconds and require a 120-second cooldown period before you can use it again. Alright, so it's about time we start getting to the fun stuff related to the weapon systems. Please do note that I do have an AI gunner up ahead. The weapon systems might be operated differently, so quick refresher to the previous page. If you were to press, or if you were to go back to your FCR menu, I recommend having this up for your Hellfires and so on and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and take off and go ahead and go to a area just to demonstrate the weapon systems. One second. Alright, so I am currently at the quote-unquote firing range here just to demonstrate a couple of things. So, So, if you were to look down on your radar screen, you can see multiple different things. For the sake of clarity, I'm going to go ahead and start off with the air-to-air mode. So, 1 second. So, air-to-air mode. It will start on. So, as you can tell, it goes in a 360 operation. So, it'll just be operating in a 360 circle. So, to identify which is which, if you see something with a half triangle and just missing the base on top with a line kind of running through it, that is a fixed wing aircraft. If it looks like a timer, like those old fashioned timers thing that uses sand, I forgot what they're called. That is a helicopter. So if I were to lock up one right now, the helicopter would be right over there. Now, just to make sure, as a review, if you want to bring up your monocle, aka your hi-hat, make sure you go to your bottom right over here, and then click on hi-hat monocle. This will bring up your heads-up display. So moving back to ground. So, ground mode, you have several different things here that's occurring. So, the two far things on the very far left are your tanks or anything that's tracked. Anything with a circle is wheeled. Anything with a box is generic. So that means it's unknown or unidentified. And then if it's a triangle, that's your air defense. So anything air defense related. And then case in point, just to make sure, if you were to go to your ASC page, you can see a triangle which has a number indicated on top of it. Each number corresponds with a specific radar site. So depending on what radar site that you're currently facing up against, you will probably most likely deal with something like a CSU 23-4 or something like that. That might pop up with a 23 or something like that. Moving back to FCR, we are going to go ahead and start using the weapon systems. So, weapon systems, the way it works is, if you were to press 4, that disengages your safety. And in this case, I'm gonna go ahead and start using the M230 chain gun. So, since I am using a head tracking software, it is gonna automatically connect to my head tracking and track whatever I am looking at. If you want to use some kind of thermal imaging site, go ahead and go down here, press NBS, and this gives you a overlay of the over the cockpit, showing what is around you. So, and as per standard procedures, if you just want to fire, you just left click. And that's the M230 chain gun. Moving on, the next thing is rockets. So if you were to press 2, that brings up your rockets. Currently I only have the 17-pound HEDP rockets. So as of right now, as you can see, the rockets are also linked to my head tracking as well, but only to a certain field of view. I do not remember what's the limits of the pylons exactly, but I do remember exactly that you can go adjust it up or down, and then a little bit to the left or right. I can't remember what's the numbers exactly. And you can also set a ripple quantity up here. So if I were to want 2 rockets, in this ahead and send off 2. And then if I were to want, say 4, so on and so forth. Lastly, Hellfires. So, Hellfires. If you are using AGM 114Ks, all I could say is hope that you have a gunner, because this is going to be a very difficult process. So, if you are just by yourself as a pilot, to access your head tracking version, or have the tabs glued to your HMD, if you press Shift 2 at the same time, it should glue to your helmet. And then if you press Shift, hold on, let me check. Alright, since I have to double check my sources really quickly, I'm gonna go really briefly on the Hellfires thing, since I did mention some stuff there that is incorrect. So the Hellfires, in your FCR page, it's the same way to engage, but with the laser guided Hellfires, you just press Shift 4. That should automatically track whatever that is currently radar tracked. Now, to turn on the laser, you just hold G, and I believe you are pretty much good to go. So, rifle. Shack 1 times, well, whatever tank that was. Now, pay attention to the symbology. If there is dotted lines outside of the on the box, you are not within constraints for firing. But if I were to put the helicopter around really quickly, if it's a solid box, a whole entire solid box, that means you are within constraints of firing the ATGM. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the AGM 114 ends really quickly. These operate in the same principle, but these also have another function that is notable as well. So, really quickly, I'm going to go ahead and break the helicopter down. So, the AGM 114 ends, they operate the same way, but this time you don't need a laser, so you don't need to hold down G. So, rifle. Tracking, and shack 1 times whatever that tank is. I'm not too sure what I put down. Now, these also have a special ability in the case that you can track drones or helicopters with these and use them as air-to-air weapons. Do I recommend this? Hell to the fuck no. Is it funny? Probably. I might as well demonstrate with this friendly drone up here, so rifle. Tracking, and that's probably a miss. Yeah, that's probably a miss. But typically you would want to use the AGM 114 ends. If you were to use it in the air-to-air mode, I would recommend it using only against slow-moving targets such as helicopters or any slow-moving fixed moves. I believe that should be all for the weapon sections for the pilot side. The gunner side, it's pretty much the same thing, but with some extra steps in the case of you have to operate the targeting camera. Alright, so this time I'm going to show this in the perspective of the gunner side. I am unfortunately not going to go in the air for this one because I do not trust the AI. So, the gunner side, you have the camera, which is going to be your very good friend if you're going to be using it for laser guided munitions. Now, on your right side, you have your monocle. Go ahead and grab that just in case I would recommend it. And on your left side, you have some access to the flight control system. But I would not recommend touching that unless you get plucked, aka the pilot is on. So, cockpit overview, you have over here, you have your radio channels, but I don't think that page works. But if that were to be the case, that would be your radio panels and your system faults and so on and so forth. On your left side, you have one of your MFDs. Right side, you also have your other MFD. It's the same thing as the pilot side. Now, I did forget to mention a thing with TSD. TSD is pretty much your tactical situational display. So anything related to the maps, any data link, stuff like that. So over here you have a bunch of different options. I would recommend only staying on attack mode. You can, but I'm not going to go too in depth in this section, mainly because this gets a lot more complicated. If you are very curious about this, I would recommend going to the GitHub and reading the manual from there. So, going back, everything else is pretty much the same, the way that you operate stuff. So you have the radar, operates the same way. If you need to bump it up, or if you just need to do some stuff to it, you can just operate the radar, so on and so forth. Nothing too special. What is special is that now you do have access to the targeting camera. So, in this case, you have the targeting camera. It's still hooked up to my head tracking software. So, same thing as usual, your weapon systems, your 1, 2, and 3. I would recommend leaving the rockets to the pilots, but you can also operate the rockets if need be. Everything is the same way. Operation of rockets, so on and so forth. If you just hold down G, you get your indicator for your rocket. Ignore the AI, he's going schizophrenic. So G is your laser detent, so on and so forth. But to understand some of the symbology that is going on here, on your left side of your screen is your angles of elevation and depression. So you have plus 30 for elevation and negative 90 for depression. And on the middle of your screen, on the top, it gives you the bearing and the angles for the limits of your camera, which is 120 both left and right. And on the down in the middle section, you have your compass, that's obvious, and then you have your quote-unquote aiming reticle. Since right now it is currently set on DTV, this is your TV mode, you're not able to see anything with color. If you were to turn on your FLIR, which by default is N, and you can just switch through 2 different modes, which are only white hot. And then at the bottom of your screen, you get your HMD, RCE, so on and so forth. The middle part is your radar cursor, that small box that has a line moving left and right. You can also see the radar cursor also moving in the middle of the screen. That indicates your radar is on. Now, rockets, it'll be indicated with the I looking, or capital I looking letter. Hellfire, you have to pay attention to the bottom right where it says, I'm currently switching through different modes, but it'll say MSL, which is missile by abbreviated. Guns, same thing. Rockets, same thing. Nothing too special with the gunner side, but that's something to know for if you're operating the camera. Everything else is the same, like I said. Turn off save, turn on save, if by pressing 4, so on and so forth. One last thing before the video ends here. So I would recommend hitting up the Age 64 project documentation for things that you do not understand. Even some of the stuff that I went over could have some flaws in the knowledge, and I would recommend just going up to here and trying to figure out what is correct or what is the correct information. There's some information that I didn't go over, such as the TSD, like I said earlier. TSD, there's a bunch of different options here, so on and so forth. You can just read up on it, and it'll give you like a general example of what everything means. Your RWR, I recommend hitting up this page to understand which is which. Down here, you'll see it SA9, which will classify as radar sites with the missiles and so on and so forth. SA19 will be your basic self-propelled anti-air guns, and SA23s are classified as ZSU 23 -4s, but I kind of went over that in the video with the ZSU 23-4s. And then you also have your jammers and so on and so forth here. Something I did not go over, your flight model. Project Longbow takes into account of weight. You can read up on this page to understand the different or like the effects of how heavy your aircraft is and what it'll do to the performance of your aircraft. And then you also have your weapon page here. You can just go through different weapon types, such as AGM-114s here. This is your Hellfires. If you go to the Hydras, you have different variation of the Hydras, such as the 151, which is your 10-pound Hydras, and then you have your M229 17-pounders. Some of the munitions I did not go over, which are the M261 MPSMs, which are just cluster Hydras, and M255 Apers warhead, which are flechettes. These are set to airburst setting by 200. The information that I provided earlier with the Hydras, with some Hydras having a airburst distance set, or you can set the airburst distance, is incorrect. And I do apologize for that.